please rise, and we have a special guest here today to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance, Larry Pretzler, Commander, if you please.
Okay, any veterans here tonight may render the hand salute. Follow me. I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call, please.
Flash.
Here.
Bunton.
Here.
Campbell.
Here.
Dempsey.
Yes.
Hill.
Here.
Menser. Here. Raker.
Here.
Okay, announcements, acknowledgments, communications, and reports. And tonight I have the privilege and honor of presenting 2 local treasure awards and also a proclamation for the Military Order of the Purple Heart. So we're going to start off with the presentation to the Military Order of the Purple Heart, and I will read this and come forth. Okay, this is a proclamation whereas the people of Mount Clemens, through the duly elected officials, have a long history of recognizing those individuals in the midst who give of themselves for the human or public good. And whereas the city of Mount Clemens has a great admiration and the utmost gratitude for all the men and women who have selflessly served their country and this community in the Air Force, and whereas veterans have paid a high price of freedom by leaving their families and their communities and placed themselves in harm's way for the good of their country. And whereas the contributions and the sacrifices of the men and women from the city of Mount Clemens who served in the armed forces has been vital to the maintaining the freedom and the way of life we all enjoy as citizens. And whereas many men and women in uniform have given their lives while serving in the armed forces, and many citizens in our community have earned the Purple Heart Medal as a result of being wounded while engaged in combat with the enemy force, construed as an exceptional act of essential services. And whereas the city of Mount Clemens appreciates the sacrifice of the Purple Heart recipients made in defending this freedom and believes it is important that we acknowledge them for their courage and show them the support and honor that they have absolutely earned. Now, therefore, let it be resolved that I, Mayor Mark Dempsey, and the City Commission hereby proclaims the City of Mount Clemens a Purple Heart City, honoring the service and sacrifices of our nation's men and women in uniform who were wounded or killed by the enemy while serving to protect the freedoms that we enjoy as Americans. So I would like to present this to you.
Thank you, Barb. I do have a plaque here for the city of Mount Clemens. The Military Order of the Purple Heart Special Recognition Award is bestowed with pride the city of Mount Clemens, Michigan, Mayor Barb Dempsey, for your dedication and support honoring America's combat wounded veterans, becoming the Purple Heart City. Presented by the Patriot members of Lance Corporal Patrick J. Gagnon, Chapter 1818, Military of the Purple Heart, United States of America.
Thank you.
Yes. Also, I'd like to present you with the official flag of the Military of the Purple Heart.
Great.
And I would like you to put this in a place of honor in the building here somewhere. Okay.
Appreciate everything.
Thank you very much. All right.
For your sacrifices.
Thank you.
Okay, I think next on the agenda is the Local Treasures Awards. It gives me great honor, and I think tonight we'll start with one of my favorite people in the world, Mr. Mangan. If you would come up, please. Bear with me, I have to read. Okay, give you a little history on Mr. Mangan. For those of you, I know this is all the relatives, and I want you to introduce your family afterwards. William Timothy Mangan, owner and operator of the Mangan's Irish Hut, was born a first-generation American in the Bronx. At the age of 17, Bill joined the United States Air Force and trained at Laughlin Air Force Base in San Antonio, Texas. He then came to Selfridge Air Force Base for 3.5 years, achieving the rank of Airman Second Class. It was there that Bill met his wife, June, and they were married at St. Peter's Catholic Church in 1955. I know, Father, you weren't there yet, but the ring bearer at the ceremony was none other than our own Gary Blash. Bill worked at Bill Murray's Bar and Lounge at 10 Court Street until he was able to save enough money to build his own Mangan's Irish Hut, which opened in 1976. The hut will celebrate 40-year anniversary in 2016. This gracious Irish gentleman always treats his visitors with a bit of old world charm. Upon entering Mangan's, he welcomes all the women with a kiss on the cheek. June knows this, so she's okay. And all the men with a big handshake. The Irish way, everyone is welcomed. Bill is a life member of the AMVETS and also a member of the American Legion, Michigan Sheriff Association of Macomb County, Mount Clemens Civil Service Commission, the Old Crowd, the Juggle-Up Club, Juggle-Up Club, the Knights of Columbus, and at St. Peter's Catholic Church, he is a member of the Finance Committee and also a Eucharistic priest. Bill is quoted in saying, "Best move I ever made was to come to Mount Clemens." Couldn't agree more with you. Congratulations. And I do want to recognize Mrs. Haller, who submitted your application for the local treasurer. So. There's lots more in here, but I couldn't read it all. It was just too great. So this is the thanks, Bill. That's what happens when you get older, you get glasses. But here's your proclamation.
Thank you.
So, it's well deserving.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Giving me a microphone could be bad. But anyway, I just got a few things to say. When I was born in the Bronx, New York, we were in a 5-story tenement house. We had 22 families living in that house, and there was probably 55 kids in the one building. We were taught to love God, love our country, family, etc. When I was 5 years of age, my uncle gave me a shoe shine box, and I shined shoes all over the city of New York. I used to go to Harlem. Picture me, a 5-year-old kid going to Harlem, shining shoes. I shined Jack Dempsey's shoes. Later on, my biggest disappointment, I went to the seminary, and I got sick, and they were going to ship me to Arizona. I came back home. I joined the Air Force to see the world. They shipped me to Mount Clemens. I hated it. Let me tell you, it was the worst place in the world. I couldn't understand. I didn't know what. When I was born, we had a bunch of Jews, Irish, Germans, and Italians. I came to Mount Clemens. I was up and down. We had a free ride station across from the Jewel Theater. We used to pick up the GIs and take us to Selford Field. That was nothing but a 10-mile ride out in the woods. And then I never knew what I was on. I lived there at the base for about 6 weeks before I knew what Gratiot Avenue was. I used to go to Kurtzall, Heidelberg. They said, "We'll meet you on Gratiot." I used to call it Gratiot. I never knew it was Gratiot. Never could find it. Tried to get soda. It was always pop. I never heard of pop. And there was other things that used to come out, and we just couldn't get used to it. And I finally met Bill Murray through, now, a Polak. I didn't know what a Polak meant. It was Polish. At that time, a lot of people in Mount Clemens were big bowlers. I met Bonnie Zuma from Bar 69. He told me about Bill Murray. I met Bill Murray. I started living with Bill Murray. I started attending bar part-time for him. We lived out Lakeshore Drive. We had the biggest house out there. And you look out there now, when we were living out there, we had to take, the water used to come over the roads. We used to get 5-gallon buckets to drink for drinking water. Now they got these big homes out there. I met my beautiful wife. I was going back to New York to be a policeman. I think we decided to stay here. And I got work for Bill Murray. And we went to the first big bad time we had. Urban Renewal came around and knocked out Bill Murray's bar. And I took it over, and he passed away. Urban Renewal came in. At them days, they just took the building. Frankton had owned the building. I moved the building up on the North Gratiot, and then I got my own business going. Well, I joined the Ambits was the first place, and I kept joining all these organs just to help people. We were always taught that you got to help the people and do what you can. And I love people. I love a good time. I did have a lot of good times, believe me. And then my wife gave me one beautiful daughter and 3 good, strong, healthy boys, men. My sons and daughters gave me 9 grandchildren. My grandson gave me a great-grandchild born January 27th, 14. He was a year old, and I was 84 years old the same day. Then I met, I was very blessed to be here. I joined St. Peter's when I first came to Mount Clemens. I did some work under Father Heenan, Father Wells, and my adopted brother, Father Cooney. And he's been a great help to me, and I think he's a great man for the community. The saddest part was on the Civil Service Commission was when they got rid of the police department. The police department in them days knew everybody. Everybody knew the policeman. If I was working nights, my kids got in trouble, I heard about it. And they were very good about it. People just take care of the family, but now it's all changed. But I want to thank Gloria Howland, the eyes and ears of Mount Clemens, for nominating me. And I want to thank the mayor and the city commission for voting for me, and I appreciate it. And that's the story. I'm still here.
Do you want to? Bill, would you like to introduce your lovely family?
This is my beautiful wife, June. My son, Bill. My daughter, Kathy. This is my nephew, Gary Hope. My son, John. My son, Kip. And my Bringbear. And if the good Lord's willing,
I did not know
August
that.
27th of this year, we're celebrating our 60th anniversary of St. Peter's. And
Gotta give
the ring bearer.
give a hand for that.
My brother, Father Cooney's going to do the service. And after Mass, we're going to have Irish Mist.
All right.
I'm inviting you all to the hut tonight for pizza.
Okay.
That'll be done.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay, next, our next local treasure is Thelma Ulrich. And if Thelma, if you would come forward. Thank you. I've known Thelma for a long time. We sit on a lot of committees, and this is another well-deserving resident of this city who has given a lot over the years. So Thelma Ulrich was born in Mount Clemens at St. Joe Hospital. Grew up in Mount Clemens, graduated from Mount Clemens High, go Bathers, and is a wonderful example of his service to our community. Miss Ulrich graduated with a bachelor's degree at University of Michigan. That's okay, we won't hold that against you. And earned a master's degree at Wayne State University back when it was somewhat rare for women to earn a college degree. She began her teaching career in California, then taught in Hawaii, Venezuela, before returning to Mount Clemens, where she taught at Wilson School. During her teaching career in Mount Clemens Community Schools, she taught most of the grades from kindergarten through 4th grade. She then became principal at Wilson School and was a principal for 26 years, serving Wilson, Lincoln, and Clemens schools. It is safe to say she influenced hundreds of children and many teachers during those years. Thelma retired in 1988, but remains very active in the community. She's still serving on the Crocker House Board of Directors, the Anton Arts Center Board, the Mount Clemens Historical Commission, and the Mount Clemens Educational Foundation. A lady never tells her age, but Thelma is a wonderful example of someone who remains active, energetic, well into her retirement. She can be seen driving her bright red Volkswagen around town and throughout Michigan. She is truly a local treasure. And this was submitted by Lois Hill. So, thank you. Give that to you. Thank you so much, Thelma. If you'd like to say something, we'll push it. No, okay. Thelma is a person of few words, but she does lots of things for this community. So sometimes it's better to listen than to speak, and that's Thelma, right? Thank you. And I'll give it back to you now.
We had some quarterly reports that didn't get done at our last meeting, and we're a little bit further behind because of the weather cancellation from last week. So we were going to cover some of the reports. One of them I'm going to take responsibility for because we didn't allow City Clerk Lisa Borgas to make her report last time. We're going to start with Lisa tonight.
Okay. The City Clerk's office is in the process of gathering and preparing updated information for candidate packets, which should be available by March 1st. Nominating petitions for mayor and city commission will be due Tuesday, July 21st. The city general election will take place November 3rd. This past December, the state legislature called for a special election to be held on May 5th. We are beginning preparation for that election and will plan to mail absentee ballot applications in March. The deadline to register to vote and be eligible to vote in this election is Monday, April 6th. We continue to accept applications for appointments to boards, committees, and commissions. A boards and commissions application was included in the latest edition of the Clementine's newsletter that was delivered to residents the first week in January. If you would like an application sent to you, please contact the city clerk's office. Currently, there are vacancies on the following boards: Beautification Advisory Committee, Board of Zoning Appeals, alternate, Brownfield Redevelopment Authority, Cable TV Commission, Harbor Commission, Historical Commission, Historic District Commission, Planning Commission, and Traffic Safety Committee. That's fine.
Thank you. Any questions for Lisa? I'll move on with the last two reports that we had. We did not have the information at the time of the meeting when we were providing the reports. I'll start with the fire department. We have a memo from the fire department discussing the work that they did from October 1st through December 31st. The Mount Clemens Fire Department made 657 calls for emergency assistance. As an add-on to that, that works out to about 2,600 calls for service per year, about 220 per month on average. Of these calls, 402 responses were for medical emergencies, 99 calls were for miscellaneous emergencies, and 39 calls were for citizen assists. We've also responded to 54 reports of possible structure fires, 36 in the city and 18 in Harrison Township. There were numerous responses to Harrison Township on other mutual aid requests, such as auto extrications and things of that nature. There were also 31 code enforcement fire inspections performed during that period of time by the fire department. Also from the Sheriff's Department, we had information that was provided to us on a monthly basis that I kind of called together into a summary report for the quarter. There's, for December 2014 and for November and October, the average number of non-assault property crimes was 160, assaultive crimes 63, service calls 901, traffic calls 522. Compare that to an annual basis, the average is actually, for the most part, down across those areas. There's 169 on average for the year 2014 for property crimes. Assaultive crimes 62 on average, service calls 931, traffic calls 589, and for a total of 21,012 separate incidents tracked by the Sheriff Department. Those Annual rates were down by nearly 4% for the non-property crimes and nearly 8% on the assaultive crimes. And that's pretty much all I had for those two different departments. If anybody has any questions about those reports or would require or ask for other information, please let me know. I'd be happy to provide it at a future meeting.
Commissioner Menser?
I just wanted to remind people, if you have a fire hydrant in front of your home or on the street near you, please clear it within a 3-foot radius around it to make it easier for the fire department if there's an incident in your street. The time you save them from digging out may be the time that you need to for them to save your life. So please clean out around your fire hydrants.
Anyone else? Okay, adoption of the agenda.
I move to adopt the agenda as presented.
Support.
Roll call, please.
Bunton.
Yes.
Campbell.
Yes.
Dempsey.
Yes.
Hill.
Yes.
Menser.
Yes.
Raker.
Yes.
Blash.
Yes.
Okay, public participation. This is the time you may address this body. All we ask is that you give us your name, your residential address, and you adhere to our 3-minute rule. So whoever would like to speak, come to the mic.
Laura Fournier, 70 Ludwig Street, Mount Clemens. At the last commission meeting, I was a little disappointed at the end to hear the dissertation that went on about the old Macomb Daily building. I have been a proponent of doing something about that building for a long, long time. But to borrow a phrase from someone I admire very much, Governor Snyder, not that I always agree with him, but he has a saying of not looking in the rearview mirror, that once something is done with, you've got to accept and go on. And I wish this commission would accept and go on and look for alternate ways to do something about the Macomb Daily building. And to borrow another adage from Governor Snyder, I would like some more positive, relentless action to get the sidewalks cleared. Thank you.
Thank you.
David Schnurr, 80 Moros. A couple things that I wanted to bring up tonight, and kind of on the heels of this, this recognition of these fine people in our community, and on the heels of what this lady just said with this Macomb Daily building. I wasn't going to talk about that, but I was captured by the irony that we're honoring these people, but when that building was proposed, not in our backyard, push them off into some corner of the city. We refused to let them, utilize that building that she's talking about. Not that that's the best use for it, but yet seems like a little dichotomy there, and that's my puzzlement, and it certainly is why I'm here tonight. I was at a workshop meeting, I think that was more than a month now, where the topic of our identity as a city came up. And once, same thing, I was blown away, from several of the commissioners of this delusional portrayal of our city as some friendly, non-toxic environment, whereas those of us that have encountered these administrative issues and stuff like that know that it's highly litigious, unfriendly, toxic, and we would like to change that, but when it's opposed at every turn, nothing ever happens. That building will sit there till somebody finally gets the influence to have it torn down. Enough of that. My last issue here is about this I'm like a dog with a bone here with this selective enforcement thing, and I'm going to bring up this example of Miss Hill's property that I brought some pictures to. Please pass these around if you could. I don't know if you can just pass it away. I am disturbed that I'm going through a situation with our community development department over a tarp on my house. And I'm being prosecuted as this continues to go on and on and on. And if you see in those pictures, once again, the coincidence of it is remarkable that I have an ally here that does not come forward, that the same behavior goes on, not repressed by our administration whatsoever, sanctioned, if you will. But yet, this one person that seems to have gotten this characterization as a malcontent can't sneeze without getting a violation notice. It's likely you'll come to my grave and get a violation notice. It's getting ridiculous, So what I need to know, I'm going to ask the city manager, with your direction, to officially, finally, because as yet I have not gotten an answer, as to how this has gone on for 25 years. That property has sat there, sanctioned, openly rewarded that, yep, we're not going to touch that. When I contact Laurel Emerson about, it isn't now just even Ms. Hill's property, I've brought several properties in the community to her attention, and she always has an excuse. So I've brought this to your attention.
Thank you.
Thank
you.
I want an answer, please.
Okay, thank you.
Good evening, Gloria Haller, 260 Cass. I see business agenda item 9A. I encourage you to follow up on that because it does bother me since the city attorney has said that the nepotism 30.118 in the charter does not include the spouse. You're kind of guilty of a self-contradiction here because charter language then is inconsistent with conventional language because in conventional lexicon, a spouse is part of the nepotism constellation, so you need to get those two tightened up. But on a lighter note, Mr. Campbell here is our third star for tonight. I think most of the commissioners know from what I sent them, but I had a good year this year. I nominated Mr. Mankin, and he hit, and I nominated Mr. Campbell for the Daughters of American Revolution History Government Teacher of the Year for Macomb County, and he won. And he's on his way now to the state, and I don't know if they told you, but you're one of 3 finalists at the state level. And once he blows on past there, he'll go to nationals, and don't forget, wherever he goes, he'll carry Mount Clemens' name with him. So, let's give a hand.
Good evening, Ruthie Stevenson, 69 Bain, speaking from Mary Ann Bullock at 79 Robertson, concerning the property at 95 inches. I got it right. Again, I remember the last couple meetings, it was taken off the agenda, and I'd just like to know the status of where we are with that, how we're going to do that, and how we're going to make this a win-win for everybody and get her out of her landlocked status. So at that point, you know, please keep her in touch and in the loop concerning this matter. I appreciate it so very much. Thank you.
Thank you. Sure. Sure.
Good evening. My name is Bill Ringler. I live at 1040 Roslyn Street, Mount Clemens. All last year, and this is all involving McLaren Hospital, snow removal. All of last year, not this year, I'll get into that in a minute, but all of last year, and we had a lot of snow, they start plowing snow at 11 p.m. and they go till anywhere between 4 and 5 in the morning, nonstop. They have these huge diesel tractors with front-end loaders. They in themselves are very noisy. They pick up the snow, they go and they bang them on the cement, and all that sound just reverberates between the hospital and my fence, which I back up to there. I've had a lot of meetings last year with not only the contractor themselves, but because they're not going to do nothing because they're being told by the hospital. But the hospital, I would call over there, they would take my name, well, he's not in. Nobody would ever get back with me. They don't want to talk to you. That was last year. So this year, and here again, we didn't have a city manager for a long time, and then the whole neighborhood was coming down in force, and then you were having a meeting to hire Mr. Brown there, and we said, well, we're not going to mess anything up. We don't want to give him a bad taste. So anyways, I talked to Mr. Brown back in October to get this thing started again. November 20th was our first snowfall. Precision Landscaping came in there and they started plowing at 2:15 in the morning. The city manager called me that afternoon at 5:30 to inform me that he had a meeting with the hospital, and the end result was basically that they weren't going to do anything. Am I right, Steve? At that time. And the manager informed me not to do anything foolish. Well, I wouldn't do that, but on December the 18th, I called Senator Brandenburg's office and I talked to his chief of staff. Told him the situation, that we have a noise ordinance here. They are hiding behind the fact that they are a trauma center and that they are exempt from this, from our noise ordinance. And I said, well, I don't have any problems with the trauma center, which is their emergency room on Harrington, but has nothing to do with any of the parking lots around the building. Nothing to do with it. And anyways, they're hanging their hat on that. And their people researched it in Lansing. They had never heard of that type of situation before where they would be exempt. And so they informed me to tell the city manager to send the hospital a notice that we are now going to enforce it, and that if there's any, until they can show us proof of that law is on the books. From December the 18th to January the 8th.
Bill, can you wrap it up? Because you're 3 minutes.
Almost.
Okay.
It was 21 days since manager and still no word. I went to the city manager's office. He informed me that he has not spoken to the hospital at this time. This was on January 29th. Now, it's been 7.5 weeks ago, and I still, just for an example, you've got it on there, the times on Super Bowl Sunday at 4 o'clock in the morning. They were off on Monday, Tuesday at 3:45, the next night, 4:45. How do you expect people to get any sleep and any peace and quiet? Then, on top of that, the construction of the Wabi Center next door, they have equipment. They start at 7 in the morning, and they've got a front-end loader. It goes beep, beep, beep. It's like an alarm clock all night long. But that I can understand.
You've been in contact with Mr. Brown
Yes.
since that, and you two are working together, I hope?
Well, I was in to see him the other day, and we missed each other, but nothing's been done.
All right.
And, you know, I was here way before last Super Bowl weekend, and, you know, we had 3 nights that we couldn't sleep.
So.
And you can see by all the people there, there's 16 names on there of the homes affected.
Okay.
4 were out of town. Everybody is in agreement.
I understand there's a meeting tomorrow, so
Well,
he'll get in contact, okay?
Okay.
All right, thank you.
Real quick, construction, I don't know if the city knows, but they are planning on putting in a road around the inside perimeter of the hospital. And how come homeowners were never notified of anything like that, or any other construction of the building? That always used to be notification. It's a no smoking campus, and my one neighbor has a large bag full of all kinds of paraphernalia they throw in his yard as they walk to the park, okay?
Okay, Bill, I'll take care of it. I'll take care of it. Thank you.
Okay, I'm done.
Okay, thank you, Mr.
So
Ringler.
you have-
Please be in contact with Mr. Brown, okay? Keep us informed. Thank you. Okay. Anyone else? Oh, David. That's all right, we'll talk later. Okay, administrative responses to issues raised.
Number one, sidewalk concerns. We do anticipate bringing a prospect of an implementation of a sidewalk program forward for consideration by the City Commission in March. At a prior meeting, Mayor Pro Tem Blash mentioned the issue of requiring property owners to install a sidewalk if one isn't present currently. That's an example of the kind of programmatic decisions that will need to be made if there is support for implementing a program in the long run. Secondly, in terms of snow and ice removal from sidewalks, administration has placed a snow ordinance reminder, FYI, on the homepage of the city website, which informs property owners of their responsibilities. Roughly speaking, it talks about the fact that within 24 hours of a snow event, homeowners or property owners are required to clear the sidewalk so that pedestrians can utilize the sidewalk. In fact, it even covers if there isn't a sidewalk present, that a path should be cleared for pedestrians to use regardless of the presence of a sidewalk or not. Failure to meet this requirement is a violation of city ordinance, and the city can issue a violation and/or clear the sidewalk or path and pass the cost on as a lien against the property. It goes on to say further that anyone with a complaint about a sidewalk in Mount Clemens that hasn't been cleared consistent with that 24-hour requirement can contact Community Development at 586-469-6818, extension 2. Second item that I had was 217 North Walnut cleanup. The bid award for the demolition cleanup of this property is on tonight's purchases and payments of invoices agenda item, and that's all I had under administrative responses.
Any questions or comments? Commissioner Blash?
Yeah, I'd like to know who's responsible for the sidewalks on the bridges?
They did them today. Most of them are done today.
Okay.
Yeah.
When I drove past this morning, they were busy
Yeah, they were
working
removing
on it.
all the snow.
All right.
That's in the city.
Anything else? Okay. Approval of the minutes of previous meetings.
So moved.
Support.
Roll call, please.
Campbell,
Yes.
Dempsey,
Yes.
Hill,
Yes.
Menser,
Yes.
Raker,
Yes.
Blash,
Yes.
Bunton.
Yes.
Okay, general business, 9A, a discussion of interest or intent to revise or amend the Mount Clemens City Charter. I need a motion.
Motion to discuss the interest in revising or amending the Mount Clemens City Charter.
Support.
A second here. We had some cover page here. According to a memorandum issued by the city attorney, Michael J. Murray, and dated September 3rd, 2014, city charter may be amended at any time in the manner provided by statute. That memorandum was included under separate cover for the packets. The Michigan Supreme Court declared that charter revision implies re-examination of the entire document and to recreate it without obligation to maintain the form, scheme, or structure of the former charter. A revision will require an election of a 9-member charter commission. A charter amendment implies that the general plan and scope of the city charter will be maintained with corrections to details. So that's the beginning point for the discussion for mayor and city commission.
Okay, we'd like to discuss. Okay, Commissioner Menser.
There are several issues that have come up repeatedly about the city charter. And so I kind of took a look at the entire charter. There was a couple places that, I got bogged down in details, but I came up with a 2-page document that I'm going to share with my colleagues here of items that I think that we can take a look at and perhaps have some discussion on changes. So it's not, one specific thing for me. It's multiples, as you can see from the document I'm handing out. There are some inconsistencies as far as I can see in things like one committee, you have to be a resident of the city for 2 years. Other committees, you only have to be a resident of the city for 1 year. There are some old things in here that I don't think have any bearing on the city anymore. There's a section under powers, rights, and liabilities that talks about airports and aircraft and the regulation of the airports and our airspace. There's another part that calls for, regular city elections to be held the first Monday in April and it's specifically dated 1955. I understand that there are current state laws that make some of this obsolete. One of the places says that the city manager must live in the city. State law trumped that a long time ago. But I think that since most of this was written in you got enough? Since most of this was written in 1954, I think it's time to to take a look at this. One that I kind of laughed about is under organization of government. This section 46 item B states that the mayor is a conservator of the peace and during emergencies declared by the commission may exercise the power conferred upon sheriffs to suppress riot and disorder. I'm sorry, Barb. I don't see it. Get out there suppressing riots.
I might. Hasn't come up yet.
I think that you know, it would behoove us to sit down and take a look at this and have further discussion. I was not looking for a vote tonight on do we want to do a revision or do we want to just do, you know, pick an amendment and do an amendment. I'm looking for discussion. And I realize that probably not everybody has gone through the charter, but, you know, obviously like I did. And so what I was hoping for is, you know, some talk.
Commissioner Martin.
Okay, I guess the first thing I'd like to interject is the fact that we cannot do anything to the charter. We are prohibited from actually changing the charter ourselves as this body. The body that changes the charter would have to come from an election. We are right now involved with a redevelopment ready certification process, which is going to take a lot of time and perhaps some money. We're in a strategic planning process, which is going to take an awful lot of time. We have a budget for 2015 and 16 that has to be developed. We have a millage proposal that has passed, or a charter amendment has passed, and millage we have to agree upon how much we're going to levy in regards to the property in the city of Mount Clemens. I think that our plate is totally full right now with the things that have to be done for the city to survive. This is something that does not have to be done for the city to survive in the near future. It's a distant thing, and don't get me wrong, I think it can be and should be looked at another time. But everything that we're talking about here with this revision or amendment is a costly item. It's money we don't have to spend right now, whereas we are trying to ask our people to pay more taxes on their property, and we're going to spend money that we don't have to spend on some other thing that can be pushed down the road. Don't get me wrong, I think, again, it can be looked at a future date, but right now, this is not the time. This is not the time. A revision would take possibly 4 elections. Lisa, how much does it cost for us to do an election? Or does anybody know?
At least $10,000.
Okay, $10,000, possibly 4 times that we would have to spend in getting this, getting an amendment, not an amendment, revision done. That's more money. And then the group itself, the people who are elected for a revision would then have to also be paid a salary. So we're possibly talking another, 10. So maybe we're talking, $50,000 of which we do not have to pay at this time. Push it down the road. I'm okay with that. Push it down the road. But this is not a time that we can deal with that. Again, the redevelopment ready certification community, that is an issue that we need to do now so we can get somebody else to come in and help us redevelop the downtown, redevelop the businesses in the city. The strategic planning session is one we're trying to work out time now so we can set up a strategic plan for our future in the city. And the millage proposal and the budget, these are all things that have to be done now. This does not have to be done now. So if we could push this down the road, I would appreciate it greatly.
Commissioner Raker.
If I can address a couple of your comments, Commissioner Button. The millage proposal is a non-issue. I mean, really, the administration is going to suggest a rate to fit within our budget, and we'll vote it up or down. The elections will hold other elections that are required anyway, and correct me, clerk, if I'm wrong, those that we have to have, we could actually put this on the ballot when we're there. So those costs are not, they're costs that are there already. We would just be utilizing what's already in place to move this process forward. And you are right, it would take substantial time and potentially multiple elections, which is more of a reason to not wait.
Commissioner Hill.
I have a question. It says in here that it has to be approved by a 3/5 majority of the city commission. What is the exact number that constitutes a 3/5?
5.
5, okay. Just wanted to clarify that. That was my guess also, but I just wanted to make sure. And then when you were talking, Roger, I must have spaced out there for a second, but did you mention redoing the master plan too.
No, he did.
No, I didn't, actually, so that's another element
Yeah,
that we need to
that's
deal
another expense and effort that we are going to be working on also.
with. Yes.
I admit that our charter is not perfect. There are things that I would like changed also, but I guess I agree with Roger that this is not the time to be doing it.
And I guess,
Campbell had his
oh,
hand up.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
Commissioner Campbell.
I'm confused. A charter revision requires a vote. A charter amendment, does that require a vote of the people?
Sure, we
They
just
both
did
do.
one.
All
We
of them
just
do.
did one.
Okay, I wasn't sure if both.
Yeah, all of them do.
Okay.
The difference is the revision that you're talking about. If you do a revision, first this commission would have to vote that they want to place on the ballot the question of should the charter be revised. That's question number one. If the electorate said yes, then you must elect a charter revision committee, which is 9 citizens. That committee would then, and normally, I guess it takes about 18 months, that committee would then devise a revised charter. They would draft a revised charter. That would then be sent to the Attorney General's office and the governor, and they would then give it a yay or nay or send it back with suggestions. That would then be placed ultimately on the ballot, that revised charter. A charter amendment is where you are putting specific questions on, a limited number, because each one has to be voted on separately. By way of example, you could say, should the charter be amended to change the nepotism or ordinances provision as follows? That's one question. It gets voted on as one question. You know, if you get 10 of them, then there's 10 separate ballot questions to be answered. I would indicate just one other minor thing, and that is that, not minor, but that you should know. State law provides what home rule cities have to have in their charter. There are mandatory charter provisions. It also then has a section of permitted charter provisions. And finally, it has a section of prohibited charter provisions. So if you revise the charter in its entirety, you would end up probably with about 80% of what's in the charter right now would still be there. It's not like you're writing a whole new document because state law says you have to have certain things.
We're over here, go ahead.
So, in your legal opinion, how many amendments is it, you know, when do you cross a threshold of like, we're gonna put 5, 10, 15 amendments as opposed to just revise it in totality? And if you can ask that, and I have another comment after that.
I don't think there is any hard and fast rule, but they do, all the literature seems to indicate that you shouldn't have too many amendments.
Sure. 'Cause
You
then,
know,
then you're,
too many questions, you know, I mean, I would imagine, like, if you had more than 5 or 6, you should probably be talking about revising as opposed to amending.
and I just want to point out to the viewing public and the colleagues that, I mean, we're not going to have a say-so in this. I mean, unless, depending on if some of us are no longer on this commission and decide to actually participate in the revision process, this is something that is going to take some time. I think we can synchronize it so it's insignificant cost to the city, but we're at least taking hold of a concern that many citizens have, that some of us here on the commission have, and I think what Commissioner Menser is asking you to do, and I'm in agreement, is, and maybe we can share some emails too. I mean, some of the things that I think would be nice to include on there We have challenges filling our boards and committees and commissions, but we're not allowed as city elected officials to sit on those. I think in some instances, it would be beneficial to have representation on that. But by charter, we're prohibited of doing that. But you can change the charter, and you can, yes, you can, Roger. Yes, you can.
Okay, since you have addressed me, I'll answer that.
Please, go ahead then.
That is not something that we created as a charter amendment. That's what the state has said. So that cannot be changed. And
I would defer to Mr. Murray on that to indicate whether or not, if you're saying that, am I incorrect in stating that we couldn't make a provision in our charter where it would be appropriate or okay for us to be appointed?
There are some state statutes that prohibit.
Some?
Yeah.
But not all.
No, but one of the things that what Mr. Commissioner Bunton is pointing out is simply that everything you don't like in the charter, a number of those things are there because state law says they have to be there.
But they don't override every aspect. So I'm sure the state is not saying that, you know, Commissioner Bunton can't serve on the beautification committee. I mean, you know, maybe I'm just using that as an example. I think there are ways where you can do this. I mean, and all I'm asking for is take this document home that Commissioner Menser has provided and give it some thought instead of just saying, no, our plate is full. Give it some thought, please.
Okay, let me go back and address one of their previous questions. There are time limits when these elections have to take place. If the committee is selected at one particular point, then within 60 days, they have to, let me see, if approved, a 9-member charter commission shall be elected within 60 days, okay? If that doesn't fall into one of those categories where we have an election already planned at that time, then that is a separate election. And then, as to your other thing, the state sets up the guidelines for the election and approval of these. Still, not only do we not participate as a city commission, none of us will be able to participate on that as a sitting city commissioner.
Which I pointed out earlier.
But, well, I'll just leave it at that. We cannot participate. There is set periods of time that have to be adhered to in the election and the selection and the modification or revision of the city charter. So it's part of the state. And I think state trumps city desires.
Mr. Menser?
Some interesting points here. The RRC process is being handled by Brian Tingley. I don't see that that's going to take a lot of commission time. The strategic planning, yeah, it might take some time, but we are being assisted in that with SEMCOG. The budget is a process that we go through every year. I don't see those as things that will prohibit us continuing this conversation. As far as a salary for the 9-member charter commission, I'm not clear that we have to pay them a salary, so I think the costs aren't quite what, you know, have been outlined here. I think that this is something that, you know, we're not going to do it overnight. I think it takes a lot of, you know, discussion. Is this something that, you know, we want to look at? We're looking at language from 1954, and that language, I believe, causes confusion for some of the issues that we see repeatedly here. And when we keep seeing the same issue and hearing the same issue over and over again, I think that detracts from the city being able to deal with the business at hand and clouds, you know, some of the issues. So again, you know, as I said, I'm not looking for an up or down vote that we're going to revise or amend, but I'm looking for some continued conversation. And if we don't want to, you know, make a decision, if you guys want to go back and look at your charter and maybe look at the document that I prepared, you know, we can come back and talk about this again in a month or 2 months. It doesn't have to be today, but I think that a process or an agreement to continue conversation kind of needs to be reached.
Commissioner Raker had his hands up first.
Okay, this is a discussion about improving government. In government, there is a cost to government. There is a cost to improving the process. And as long as the process is improved and it outweighs the cost, then it's a move in the right direction, which if we go through this, I think that we do have at least 9 people within this community that have the wherewithal and fortitude and goodwill to review this and make it as user-friendly as it could, pardon me, that they could maximize improving it to the best that it could be. Also, City Manager Brown, the strategic plan, you called for a 1 Saturday evolution or a 2 evening 4-hour block. So 8 hours out of my year for that strategic planning process is well worth the investment, and certainly I don't think it is so overbearing that this is not something that we can pursue. So.
Okay, finish.
Yes.
Commissioner Button.
I guess my question becomes, conversation for what? We will have no voice in whatever the 9-membered commission comes up with that's going to be responsible for suggesting or revising our charter. I don't understand why we would have any conversation about it. It has nothing to do with us. We will not, as a sitting board, as a city commission, we will not have a word to say about this. So if what you want to do is write down some suggestions, if this comes to fruition, where there is a committee that's going to consider revising or amending our city charter, you can give them the notes and you can give them the ideas that you have, and let's move on. But the whole point of the matter is there's no reason for us to continue to discuss it because we will have no voice in it, none whatsoever. And the strategic planning, the guiding light that the SIMCOG is going to provide for us is to direct us in the right direction. That does not mean that that whole process is going to be finished after these 10 hours of conversation, 10 hours of training, 10 hours of whatever. That process does not end at that point. So you're saying, okay, you know, it's very little time that we have to spend with that, but that's not true. Anything that's going to be developed is going to have to be developed over a period of time with a lot of input, and we can do this fine. I don't have a problem with doing it. Let's do it later. Let's do it when we have time. We have 4 or 5 crucial issues on our table right now, and we need to deal with those first and then come back and deal with those things that are not so crucial, that are not so drastically affecting our community.
Commissioner Raker had his hand up first.
Yes, Commissioner Martin, you keep saying that we have no voice in this, and that is obvious because we'll have other elected officials that will be actually revising the charter. However, to the city attorney, how else does this get on the ballot or the radar unless we talk about it?
I think, and I'd have to check, but I think there could be a petition initiative.
Yes.
So either a petition
or the city commission, either
city
or.
commission by a vote of 5 to 7?
Yeah,
Five
because you
to
have
7.
to have 3/5, and in
To
our
actually-
case, that would be, in our case, that requires 5 to get to that threshold.
Commissioner Menser.
I guess the point in having the conversation, and you're right, Commissioner Button, we won't be sitting on that commission, but we need to decide as a board, is this something that we think would be beneficial to the city? Do we want to impanel a charter commission? Do we feel that the charter document at this point, you know, could use some revision, and do we want to impanel? That's what the discussion is about.
Commissioner Button.
We can't influence this thing at all, and so there's no reason for us to discuss it. There's nothing that we can do with it. Our conversation is going to fall on deaf ears. The only people who will make this decision and deal with this are the people who, first of all, we have to have an election, and that election of those 9 members to revise would have to then sit down and do their due diligence and then respond perhaps to the things that you recommend or that we recommend. But again, us bantering this about and here is not going to accomplish anything. It's not, and as far as the people being aware are concerned, I think we've already established the fact that this charter can be revised, but it's not, or amended. I would vote for amending it rather than revising it. Revising it is much longer. We have a few issues that do need to be addressed, and then from that few issues that need to be addressed, let the committee address it.
Anyone else? Commissioner Menzer?
We would need to give, I think, the charter commission that votes or, you know, that runs election, I think some guideline or thought of, well, let me rephrase,
Yeah.
okay? Let me rephrase.
Take it back.
Yes. What we need to discuss is, do we even want to consider it? Do we want to consider impaneling a charter? Do we want to consider just doing an amendment? So that's the discussion that we need to have. If the majority of the commission, you know, less than 5, feels that there is nothing here to, you know, amend, or I'm sorry, nothing here to revise that requires a complete revision of the charter, then that's one issue. If there's only a couple things, as you stated, that you agree that could be amended, then that's another issue. So the conversation between the commissioners is, where do we want to lead? Where do we want to go with this? Do we only want to amend a couple things and the rest of it is just boilerplate and it doesn't matter? Or do we want to take a look at the whole and have a conversation about impaneling?
Commissioner Raker?
Commissioner Button, you did admit that you feel that there are a few things that should or could be amended. So in that spirit, I'm asking that you review this, take a look at what commissioners provided, give it some consideration, and at a later date, if you feel that those few things are the only things that need to be amendment, I'll meet you halfway and say, you know what, this is something that we should put on the ballot then to amend. But you know, the discussion we're having here is whether or not 5 of us are going to support it at some point in time. And just to say no right now, I think is a little premature, with the fact that you have openly suggested that there are some amendments that need to be made, and I appreciate that. But once everyone's comments are complete, I will be prepared to make a motion to close the discussion unless you have comments.
Well, one comment is I really thought that our discussion was going to be about amending 1 or 2 parts of the charter. When Commissioner Menzer handed out these 2 pages of things, that sounds like a total revision. And that, to me, that's a totally different thing. And anyway, then I have a question in addition to that. Are we taking a vote tonight, or are we just discussing? Okay.
No vote, but we should come pretty soon to terms of this discussion, since it's been carried on for 15 minutes.
We can carry on for an hour and 15 minutes.
If you'd like to go,
sure,
right?
we could, but I'm not looking to do that.
Apparently,
I will point out
a couple people have been carrying it on.
Because this is what we do. We carry on the business of the public in public, for the public.
No lecture, just what were you going to say?
I was going to point out to my esteemed colleague that the item says right out, revision, interest to revise or amend. So both were included in there. So this should not be a surprise. If there aren't any other comments, go ahead.
This wasn't meant to be a be-all, end-all. There were these are just, I like to do my homework. I read the charter. I found things that I thought were questionable. You don't have to agree with any of these. You might want to agree with all of them. we might want to just simply go through and change the language where it says he. Because look at this council, there are 3 women on it. This document does not address any possibility that there would ever be a woman mayor or a possibility that there would be a woman council person. So this is just because I like to go through and pick out everything. As I said earlier, I was not looking for a vote tonight. I'm looking for continued discussion. And as I said earlier, there are a couple of sections in here that I didn't go through completely. Here's an interesting one, purchasing. You know that our finance director can't purchase anything over $1,500 without council's approval. In this day and age, there's not a lot, for a city this size that's going to be under $1,500. I think that that's prohibitive to smooth operation of of financial direction. But that's, again, something that we can talk about. But there were some things like, the public utilities that I didn't go through, and I didn't go through the things on courts. Those are very exact, and those weren't things that I felt that, I could give a good discourse on. But these are things, as I read through, that did not make sense to me, that I knew that the state laws had changed, and I just felt that these are things that should be updated. One of the things is, it's nonsensical. It covers compensation. It says the mayor receives $500, council receives $300. Well, obviously, that's not true. So it's language that I think needs to be updated, and it's
I think that specific one has been addressed because there is a committee that deals with the compensation of the mayor and the commissioner.
Yes, there is, but it's still written that way.
Yeah, but what occurs as a practical matter is that I would guess that East Point, St. Clair Shores, Roseville, et cetera, that their charters are probably about of the same era. I'm not aware of them revising their charters. What happens is the things that state law changes, you follow the state law, you ignore what's in the charter, and things that are obsolete, such as pronouns, you ignore them. And so that's the way that most communities, unless they, have the will to revise it, that's how they operate. They don't go through a full revision of it. You mentioned the courts. The whole courts section has no relevance. It's about a municipal court. We haven't had a municipal court in 50 years. We have a district court. That whole section no longer has any bearing. But you ignore it. I mean, that's how you operate on a day-to-day basis. And that's the way, most communities do, unless they're going to go through the process.
Just one more comment, and I'm through, I promise.
Sorry.
If our citizens feel so strongly that this needs to be redone, revised, they can put a petition together. And they can bring that petition forward, and that would force this issue into either an amendment or a revision. If they're so interested in this being changed, if it's just us being interested in being changed, I think we need to put it down and get the more important issues taken care of. So, I'm through.
I'd just like to say one thing.
Well, I think Ron
Oh,
had
I'm
his hands
sorry.
up, so
Okay.
I don't want to feel like ignoring him.
This is a question. Is it unusual that our charter is 60 years old and hasn't been amended? Is that commonplace?
No, like I mentioned, I'm not aware of Roseville, East Detroit, or St. Clair Shores
So
revising.
it's not unusual that...
The last big place that revised was Detroit. Did a revision two years ago, I believe it was. But they changed their whole form of government. They went to a ward system, and a totally new document.
Commissioner Hill.
I just wanted to say that Denise is not the only person on this city commission who has read the charter. I have read the charter, and I
read it all the
suspect
time.
others have also, so. For the record.
Wasn't fine that
Yes.
nobody else had read it.
Okay, is there any other discussion on this?
On that note, I will move that we close discussion on this item to be continued at a later date determined by at least 2 members of the commission.
Second.
Any other or further discussion? Roll call.
Hill.
Yes.
Menzer.
Yes.
Raker.
Yes.
Blash.
Yes.
Bunton.
Yes.
Campbell.
Yes.
Dempsey.
Yes. Okay. 9B, request approval to enter into an agreement with the Clinton River Canoe and Kayak Rental for use of the Marina Bathhouse and Shady Side Park. I need a motion.
Move to approve the amendment for the use of the Marina Bathhouse and Shady Side Park for canoe and kayak rental between the City of Mount Clemens and Clinton River Canoe and Kayak Rentals, and to authorize the mayor and the city clerk to execute the same.
Have a second?
Support.
On January 27, 2015, the Harbor Commission made a recommendation to the city enter into a concession agreement with Clinton River Canoe and Kayak Rental for the 2015 season. The enclosed agreement would run from April 1st, 2015 through October 31st, 2015. This agreement is identical to the 2014 agreement. In lieu of rental paid to the city, the contractor will be responsible for any maintenance and cleaning of restrooms. This agreement can be terminated by either party with 30 days written notice.
Questions, comments? Commissioner Raker?
I'll defer to Commissioner Blash.
No, I was just going to ask, were there any issues with this company last year that we would be concerned about?
I'm not aware of any performance issues or any other concerns that were brought up during the course of the last agreement, so I think that we were satisfied with the relationship that we had with them.
Thank you.
Commissioner Raker?
Is the operator here? I think he is. Would it be appropriate to ask him some questions?
Yes, sure.
Good evening, Mayor, Council. How are you this morning? How this evening?
A few things.
Yeah.
One, how many rentals and days of operation did you have last year? And what was your total cost incurred in maintaining the facility?
We maybe, you're going by memory, 10 from Bud Park to the YMCA dock. We no longer are in contract with the Clinton Township Park up at Bud, and that section of the river is now completely blocked. So we're not paddling that 3-hour section, we only have the 1-hour section. It's 45 minutes to an hour of paddling. And it's not, a lot of people aren't really that into it, I guess. But, you know, we want to have a presence in the town, and I think what we are is we're just ahead of the game on it. Until we can get a paddling course completely through the river, which we should be down into the Clinton Road area by the end of this spring. It's hard to utilize that section. It's tough. We've put people in here and done hourly rentals also, and that would probably be maybe about another 10. And at that point, it costs us more to drive over here and put a boat in for $15 and hang around for an hour and pull it back out. But it's a convenience for customers at that point, which we've noticed at the state parks and the Oakland County parks that, you know, it's a residual business. It's being out there in the public eye and being by the river and trying to get something going.
What about your expenses incurred for maintaining? Because I remember I stopped and you were cutting down the tree.
Papers and stuff are maybe $100 to $150 for tissues and hand wipe, you know, papers, and then you put soap bottles in there too. It's no more than $200 for the paper products.
What about? Did you ever get the water wheel going? Because I stopped and you were cutting that tree down and I was steamed. You said you were going to get that water wheel going.
What we did was we put it up so that it wouldn't turn anymore, and they come in and broke all that stuff out of there. So now, and then they for some reason have this.
Vandals? Is they vandals?
Yeah, they want to jump up on that rail and then walk on that wheel and then jump up on that next rail, and that breaks those paddles down. And there really is no way to keep them from doing that without putting up something really ugly. You know, we got the picker bushes in there, they're growing like weeds.
Had a beautiful tree
And
there,
that
too.
keeps everybody out of there, and the flowers haven't been stampled down.
But
So-
that paddle wheel's not gonna get fixed like you said you were going to.
God, I want to fix that thing, but man, I don't believe that there's, some of the bolt holes are twice to 3 times the size of the bolt that was initially in the hole, so as you turn it, the whole thing oblongs.
It's a big piece of,
It's a very heavy, huge piece.
and it's unique custom carpentry work that is
Yeah,
not
we got a
easily
guy that'll
replicated.
supply the thickness of the wood, because it is an oddball thickness. It was obviously rough sawn right here somewhere. And the hardware would be the hard thing to replace. You know, a lot of that would have to just be custom-made plates to go where the, you know, where a normal washer would go. They have, you know, square, 1/4-inch thick plates, and they're holding those together. Basically, that's what's holding it together currently, is the plates are so large in front of the washers that they're not allowing it to come out of the larger hole that the bolt's sitting through. But yeah, there's this, you know, if nobody climbed on it, there wouldn't be a safety issue, but there's, you know, there's possibility that a lot of that could fall off if, you know, there was an individual climbing over the top of it. We'd like to see something done with that, hopefully with the DEA now, and, you know, we got another year at it. That
How many actual
20.
20 canoers, boats?
At the
20
most boats, yeah. Yeah.
For the
No,
entire summer?
it doesn't nearly cover our costs, but like I said, we're down there on the river, and we try to make a presence and try to keep, you know, all the sleeping bags and stuff from underneath the building and flowers planted.
Any other questions? Thank you.
Thank you.
Roll call?
Menser,
Yes.
Raker,
No.
Lash,
Yes.
Bunton,
Yes.
Campbell,
Yes.
Dempsey,
Yes.
Hill.
Yes.
9C, request approval to hold the Ash to Go event on Wednesday, February 18th, 2015. I need a motion.
I move to grant approval to Grace Episcopal Church to hold the Ashes to Go event on Wednesday, February 18th, 2015, and to allow 5 clergy to assemble on Main Street between Market Street and Macomb Place from 12 to 1 p.m.
Support.
The idea of this proposal is to allow this group to offer ashes to the public for Ash Wednesday. No road closures or city services are being requested. If approved, all public sidewalks would have to remain passable at all times, and a certificate of liability insurance naming the city as an additional insured has been submitted.
Questions? Commissioner Menser.
I just wondered which churches, and is this like a multi-denominational event? So like, you know, somebody from St. Peter's will be next to somebody from the First United Methodist, which will be next to somebody from Morning Star. So, do we know?
Without checking the details, that is accurate, right? 5 churches will be involved. The idea is for them to cooperate and offer this service to people that otherwise might be too busy to get to church on that day.
I think it's a very interesting idea and timely for how busy people are nowadays. It's just, I think it's kind of intriguing.
Anyone else? Roll call, please.
Raker,
Yes.
Lash,
Yes.
Bunton,
Yes.
Campbell,
Yes.
Dempsey,
Yes.
Hill,
Yes.
Menser.
Yes.
9D, approve purchase and payments of invoices. Need a motion?
Move to approve the purchases and invoices as presented.
Support.
Any questions or comments? Commissioner Raker?
To the city manager, I see the finance director's not here.
Yes,
She's right behind you. She's
Oh,
behind you.
I'm sorry, you snuck in. When I turned around before, you weren't there. All right. There is a substantial delta between all of these contracts collectively, and it does call for a budget amendment. I'm wondering if you can, I mean, obviously, which will come at a later date, can you speculate as to where this $18,000 will end up coming from?
Which item are you?
Collectively, the
Well, they would
purchase
come
of
from
pavers.
all the different, I mean, you'd have to go individually.
I'm asking
Well, I think she's confused.
I'm asking her.
So the waterworks one is okay. Number 4 at the bottom, I'll work up, and then number 3, Aetna, is all right. The other items for the transmission, that will require, or it is a purchase order, and what happens is at the end of June, the balance of the purchase order is carried over to next year. Okay? And the same would go for the transmission and hydrants. So if we need repairs or we need to replace hydrants, we only budget because we don't know until it actually happens. We have a budget amount of $7,000, but they're purchasing more hydrants. And so apparently there is repairs or replacements that have to be completed out there. So
Understood, but like as far as like the transmission is concerned, there's a $13,000 difference, correct?
yes. And so we amend the budget once a year.
Right.
So when we get down to June, I will amend the budget.
And where would those funds come from, the $13,000?
Well, last year when we amended did the rates, I always build into the budget in case of emergency. We always have funds that are there. We have a capital outlay of $50,000 additional also that I always build into the rates.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Anyone else? Roll call, please.
Blash.
Yes.
Bunton.
Yes.
Campbell.
Yes.
Dempsey.
Yes.
Hill.
Yes.
Menser.
Yes.
Raker.
Yes.
Consent agenda.
Move to approve the consent agenda as presented.
Second.
Roll call.
Bunton.
Yes.
Campbell.
Yes.
Dempsey.
Yes.
Hill.
Yes.
Menser.
Yes.
Raker.
Yes.
Blash.
Yes.
Okay, city manager's report.
To begin with, to address something that Commissioner Menser tried to get me to fix in the first place. Apologize, I have 2 different versions of my administrative responses, and I neglected to cover the current one, which had the roll call votes aspect on there. Under that number 3 on my administrative report, roll call votes. City Commission roll call votes are to be handled consistent with the language in the city charter 10.127, section 90, item 4. Which is quoted as saying, in all roll call votes, the names of the members of the commission shall be called in alphabetical order, and the name to be called first shall be advanced 1 position alphabetically in each successive roll call vote.
I believe that was a question from Commissioner Raker.
Thank you.
So I apologize for not covering that in the first place. Getting on to the city manager's report, I'm flipping between screens, so bear with me a second here. The fire consolidation study update I wanted to provide. I've received the bids as well as a summary document generated by Macomb County Emergency Management staff. The leadership committee representing the involved communities and fire departments has in fact already met in early February to discuss the bids and make a recommendation to the county. Next steps include setting up interviews, soliciting reports from the candidates that are selected for interview as examples of their work, and reference calls for those same candidates as well, where they had studies completed in the past. Some of that work is yet to be determined and the timing is yet to be determined, but the work is progressing. We anticipate that the actual time frame is going to be slightly behind the original expectation because of the fact that we're adding some additional layers of work in here, such as getting a hold of prior studies that were done by the candidates. It's going to take time to read. Those are usually pretty involved documents and pretty thick documents, so it's going to take some additional time. But we're going to probably be within about a month of the original time frame. Secondly, Memorial Park baseball, softball fields update. The city's contractor or partner that previously handled the scheduling and use of Memorial Park baseball/softball fields issued a letter to us in mid-December stating that they were no longer interested in coordinating the scheduling and use of the fields, as they prefer to concentrate their efforts on staffing the Mount Clemens Ice Arena, which they also manage. Since that time, the city has held various meetings, received contact lists, and worked out the initial plans for handling that responsibility. Initial communications have gone out to the individuals represented on that contact list regarding the shift in responsibility. For informational purposes, anyone interested in potentially utilizing our fields should contact the DPS via one of the following numbers. Actually, no, I'm going to cut it down to one number. Slight change in plan since this was drafted. It's 586-469-6818, extension 512. So that's for anybody who might be interested in utilizing the softball fields, baseball fields for their purposes, for a league purpose, for a team's purposes. Contact us at extension 512. Third point that I had is a little bit anticlimactic for the commission members here today, but for informational purposes, I'll still cover it for the folks at home here. Sheriff Substation update. Sergeant Darren Bondi, formerly of our Mount Clemens Substation, has moved on to new opportunities within the Sheriff's Department. He started with our substation in 2013, and I wanted to say it was a pleasure for me to work with him, and I thank him for his service at the Mount Clemens Substation, and I wish him all the best in the future. We do have a new sergeant that's in charge, Sergeant Tim McFadden, who was here this evening for commissioners to have a chance to meet and talk with for a few minutes before our meeting. Sergeant McFadden comes to us with years of experience and a great reputation, and I look forward to working to build a strong relationship with Sergeant McFadden and continue the outstanding relationship the city's enjoyed with the Macomb County Sheriff's Department in the years we've been working with them. And that's all that I had on my city manager report for this evening.
Commissioner Raker.
You mentioned in your report the leadership committee representing the communities involved for the fire consolidation study. I'm sorry, did you mention, can you remind us who our representation is?
There's principally, there's been a little bit more than that, but principally on the leadership committee, it's myself from the quote-unquote administrative side, and then Captain Shipman from the fire department from the operational side.
Okay, and then for the Memorial Baseball Park, was that contract separate from the operation of the ice rink?
Yes.
Yes.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Okay, Commissioner comments. Commissioner Blash.
Okay. Just three things. First, I'd like to thank the DPW or DPS. You and your guys, your crew, did a great job cleaning up the snow. They did a good job.
As always.
I'd like to congratulate Commissioner Campbell on his award. And thirdly, I'd like to thank Mr. Bill Mangan for opening up the Mangan's Irish Hut here in Mount Clemens, because 39 years ago this March is where I met my wife.
Commissioner Button.
Awesome. Okay. In the past, we had this dialogue about the Macomb Daily building. So several decades ago, George Adams bought the Macomb Daily building and did not maintain it or improve it. It has been left to deteriorate for years. I thoroughly agree that the building should be developed and soon. I, among others, would love to see that eyesore repaired or replaced. However, not at the expense of tax-paying citizens of Mount Clemens. A payment in lieu of taxes should not be given for a for-profit business. If the property is developed properly, it will make millions of dollars in profit per year and still only pay the minimal payment in lieu of taxes while pocketing the money that they should be paying in taxes. The Veterans Administration has a number of vacant buildings in the city that can be converted into veteran housing. The old Huntington Bank building would make a fine location. The old beauty school on northbound Gratiot would be a fine, another fine location. The two beautiful, very sound schools are available in our community. It would also make a very great location with minimal renovation for veteran housing. The old Macomb building, Daily building, is not a great location for veteran housing anyway. It has an elevator, and that elevator goes out of service, then it would require vets to walk upstairs to get to their housing floors. Not a great solution. Maybe they'll put an escalator in, I don't know. Perhaps Mr. Adams can contact Mr. Illich or the owner of Quicken Loans to get sufficient financing or partnership to develop that property. Please, don't do it on the backs of the citizens of Mount Clemens. We will be asking our community to pay more in property taxes just to keep the city from receivership. The state will be asking to add 1% sales tax on purchases. It would be a slap in the face and in the pocket to ask us to give a tax break to Mr. Adams and his development. I'm not opposed to the old Macomb Daily building being renovated or replaced. I just don't want to entertain the notion of a pilot being offered to them. When we conclude the redevelopment ready community certification, perhaps they will be able to give us a new direction for that development. And calmly, I hope I shared my feelings on that issue. Now, congratulations to Commissioner Ron Campbell for being the winner of the Alexander Macomb chapter of the Daughters of the American Revolution Outstanding Teacher of American History Teacher of the Year Award. I also believe he's one of the 3 finalists for the state, so congratulations. Teachers don't get honored often enough.
That's true.
Anyway, Mr. Emerson, our local Macomb County African American historian, will be speaking tomorrow, February 10th, at the Mount Clemens Library at noon on the subject of why African Americans came to Macomb County and when. I encourage all that can make it to attend and to learn more about our local Black American history. And I will be there, but I'll probably be late. I have another appointment that can't be redone. Speaking of African American history, I'm going to just quickly give you a little brief about Lewis Howard Latimer. You know, I got a long thing to read here, and it's getting late, so I'm not going to do the whole thing. His first patent came in on February 10th, 1874, and it was for a water closet for the railroad cars. That's a toilet for anybody that doesn't remember what that means. He was also instrumental in the patent for the telephone. He was a draftsman and a teacher of deaf children. Hired him to draw the plans for a patent that this guy had. This guy was Alexander Graham Bell. And he worked late all night and came up with the drawings, and they submitted their application for the patent February 14th, 1876. Just hours before another application was submitted by Elijah Gray for the same similar device. So he sneaked it in, and it was only because Lewis Latimer was able to get those drawings done for him and get it in. He also had another thing that he did. He invented not the electric light bulb itself, but a device that enclosed the filaments within a cardboard envelope, which prevented the carbon from breaking or burning out fast. So what this did is it enabled electric light to be installed within homes and throughout the streets. So he did a lot of things that you don't hear much about, but he was instrumental in both the telephone, the light, the electric lights, and also the toilet for the trains. Later, Commissioner Wisdom. A good plan executed today is far better than a perfect plan executed next week. That's George Patton. And with that, we'll say good night.
Commissioner Menser.
Well, I'm going to leave the Macomb Daily thing alone because Commissioner Button and I disagree. We disagree on the cost of it. We disagree on whether or not it would, bring more taxes to the residents. So I'm just going to leave that one alone today. But I have a couple things. If you have a computer or a camera that you want to recycle, St. Mary's School is hosting a small electronic recycling event that's open to the public in March, on March 7th. It's open from 9 to noon at their Union Street and South Gratiot place, or from 9 to 3 at Grand in South. And they'll take anything from, monitors and printers and ink cartridges and keyboards and audio and video equipment. They're suggesting a donation of $5 per family in support of the school. So if you've got, an old TV in the basement that's, not a flat screen, you might want to take it to the St. Mary's. In addition, the County Health Department is giving away free radon testing kits. All you got to do is be a resident of the county. So if you have a basement, you can get a free radon kit by calling the Mount Clemens Health location right up here on Elizabeth and Groesbeck, and you can call them at the Mount Clemens location at 586-469-5236, and they're pretty much open 8:30 to 5. I've skipped for the last couple of months where I've been in my community, where I've spent my money, and I want to tell you about a new place that I've been. But I shopped at the Anton Art Center and did buy some Christmas gifts. I met some friends and then a co-worker at Bass City Bistro. I've been there several times. I had a dinner at Abibo's. Is that pronounced correctly?
Abibo's.
Abibo's. I never get that right. A couple of times. Their chicken marsala is very, very good. I've been to the Mount Clemens Grill a couple of times. You know that they're the same owners as Louis. Their bean soup is to die for. I went to Little Lorraine's with 36 of my coworkers for a Christmas party. I attended a retirement party at Orleans with 30 members of coworkers. I spent, unfortunately, several evenings at Three Blind Mice in the evening, and I've also been there for lunch several times. And I had a really great cheeseburger at the East Side. But if those of you who haven't tried out the new restaurant, the Bourbon Street Grill, which is right down here on Crocker, right before Harper, if you like catfish, unbelievable. If you like gumbo, jambalaya, you like shrimp, very good. I had the black beans and rice. It was awesome. And you know what? My grandmother can't make cornbread that good. So they're having a Mardi Gras party on the 17th. You can also reserve your table for Valentine's Day. But if you haven't tried that restaurant, please do. The food was awesome. The atmosphere was wonderful. When you walk in, they have the walls all painted, so you think that you're in a garden in New Orleans. So I'd like to give a shout out to our local company, Metro Technologies. They're in the Viscount building on Walnut. They are up tomorrow for a Macomb Business Award as a corporate citizen. So it's nice to see one of our local companies being recognized by the county. And I would like to thank the couple people who called me after our last commission meeting and voiced their support of my, economic development agenda. I'd like to say thank you, Karen Upshaw and Mrs. Dorothy Upshaw. And I'd like to give a shout out to Mrs. Johnson, who I met in the parking lot of Myers and had a few things to say. She had a pretty red hat and coat on. And she explained to me that she watched the commission meetings every session. And I thanked her for that. It's good to know that people are watching. And the gentleman here, our local business owner, we had a very nice conversation too. So I thank the residents for their positive comments and their support. Thank you.
Commissioner Raker?
Yes, I have several points I'd like to make too. In regards to uniform code enforcement, there's obviously an issue, and I'm asking that the city manager please address this objectively and directly. I don't know if this is actually against the rules. I know that a couple years ago it came before this commission, possible ordinance to not allow scaffolding for certain amounts of time, and that was kind of targeting actually one person in particular, which I didn't think was the way to make policy. But we have to worry about the perception issue, and perception is reality, and unfortunately I think in some cases it's accurate. I'm willing to work with people to address these things, but as city commissioners, we do have to set examples, and I would like to know if this is in fact a violation or not. In regards to the Purple Heart recognition we received, I thought that was fantastic. I had some questions, so I did a little Googling, and I reached out to the former National Purple Heart Governmental Agencies Commander, Mr. Jim Berg. He was out in Redding, California. I sent a mystery text to this number, and he called me back immediately. And I wanted to ask him, I said, you know, what does this do, and what are we as a community, are we incurring some type of undertaking or whatnot? And it's an awareness campaign, and it's important. I mean, those that did give the ultimate sacrifice and those who were wounded in combat, and it's important to make that recognition. And when it does come to 67 casts, I kind of shared my perspective on that I thought maybe this was kind of being done as like a little bit of damage control. And it was just speculation as far as in regards to veterans, because some things were said about veterans that weren't very pleasing and very, very nice at the microphone. And I certainly didn't take too kind to them. And what Mr. Berg had explained to me was, Joe, this may be the start that your commission gets it. Maybe they're getting it. And so, and on Mrs. Fournier's point about looking forward, and I'm in total agreement with that, with any solution, that building's been sitting there for 20 years empty. And so maybe if another attempt to do something on behalf of veterans did come to 67 casts, maybe in the same spirit that you considered the Purple Heart proclamation, you'd also consider something at 67 casts. In regards, on that point, 67 casts, Commissioner, we have a certain responsibility to say things that, you know, with a certain amount of accuracy. When you referenced Illich and Gilbert as investors and they should go and seek them out, they are the biggest investors in the city of Detroit. They're also offered incentives to do those investments, and that's why you have to offer incentives to get that type of development in downtown. And if you remember, the administration did recommend an endorsement on that idea. And it was approved the first time and turned down the second time. Okay. Let me see here, one more second. I want to end on a positive note. I'd like to congratulate both of our local treasurers, Ron Campbell, and also I thought it was very unique and fitting how Mr. Mangan referred to the Gloria Haller as the eyes and ears of Mount Clemens. I thought it was very appropriate. Those are my comments.
Commissioner Hill.
Well, first of all, I'd like to say that I'm getting a little tired of Mr. Schnurr coming here and talking about comparing our situations, because other than the fact that we both own old houses that need lots of work, our situations are very different. And I'm not going to sit here and go tit for tat through the whole list of things, but I would like to say that one of the big differences is that my house is paid for and my taxes are paid. And I'm going to leave it at that for right now. On to a more pleasant subject, the ice carving show that was held the last weekend of January was a really nice event. I went on Saturday and was very pleased to see all the people that were downtown. The carvings were great and the stores seemed to be very busy. I was also pleased to see that there are some new businesses in the downtown area. So it's very encouraging, and I think it was a nice event. I'm not sure what happened the next day when it started snowing, but anyway, I really enjoyed it. The next day was the day that all the snow started, and that's the reason why our meeting was canceled last Monday, is because of all the snow. Since that snow, I've heard many complaints about snow removal, both on the sidewalks and the streets. There wasn't a snow emergency declared this time, mainly because of concern about people that don't have driveways, making it difficult for them to get their cars off the street. I think people should get their cars off the street whether there's a snow emergency declared or not. And I understand that not everyone has a driveway, but I think most people can find a place to move their cars if they try. However, I am willing to acknowledge that it is a real problem for some people, so perhaps there should be some exceptions. But I know of many people who have driveways and still park their cars in the street. And there are many people, including me, who are pretty steamed about not having our streets cleared properly because of those people. I may be a grouch on the subject, but I think the emergency snow ordinance should be declared and it should be enforced whenever there is significant snowfall. I understand that the sheriff's department is too busy to go around issuing tickets in this regard. And so I'm asking if it would be possible to have the person who issues parking tickets issue tickets for the snow ordinance. Because I really don't think that some people are going to take the emergency snow ordinance seriously until there are some tickets issued. And I also think that it could be a good source of revenue for the city. On a more positive note, also related to the snow, thank you to all those who helped dig other people out after the storm. I heard many reports from those who appreciated assistance from their neighbors and passersby who helped plow out sidewalks and driveways. If any of you were one of those people, it was appreciated. Thank you also to the street department for their very hard work on our streets. They do a great job, and it is appreciated. I'd like to give my congratulations to Ms. Thelma York and Mr. Mangan on receiving the Local Treasure Awards. I think that it's very important to recognize people, and we do have a lot of real treasures in this city, and so one by one we're beginning to recognize them, so congratulations. And also congratulations to Commissioner Campbell on his recent award. It's excellent, and I agree with Commissioner Bunton that teachers are not recognized enough. So any recognition is appreciated. So thank you. Have a great evening and a great week, and I hope everyone stays safe and warm.
Thank you. Commissioner Campbell.
Thank you. To pick up on Commissioner Hill, I did hear several concerns regarding cars being left on the street. And there's someone in the audience here that said, when you receive a complaint, you better go out and look at it first before you make a comment. And so I did. And there were cars that had snow over the headlights. So the question is, from the people that stopped me when I was out walking, who is responsible for these cars that are on the street? Is it the city or is it the sheriff? So people want an answer to that once and for all. I don't have a driveway either, and my car was off the street. I parked it in the neighbor's driveway, so thank you, Mrs. Ulrich. Which leads me to the second comment here. I would like to say thank you to the two Local Treasure Awards, Mr. Magnan and Mrs. Ulrich, and all they have contributed to the city in making this a nice place to live. So with that, thank you.
Thank you. I too want to echo congratulations to Thelma Ulrich and Bill Mangan and our own Commissioner Campbell for his award. It's nice to have some positive things happening in the city. I also want to thank the DPS. This was the third worst storm we've had, okay? We're 4 square miles. Our DPS by Monday at 5 in the afternoon had all the streets cleared. Main streets more than once. There's 36 miles of local roads, 17 miles of county roads. There's Gratiot, which is a state road, but we're responsible for that. There are sidewalks, there are parking lots. So these men worked long, hard hours to make sure that we can get out on the road. I can't say that for our counterparts in Clinton, Harrison, and anywhere else, even St. Clair Shores, some of the other cities. So from the standpoint, the amount of people we have, and we lost, remember, 4 people in the DPS. So we only have how many working the roads?
There's actually only 5.
Five men that did that. I don't think anybody else here can say anything negative. It may have not been super clean, but it was done. And I commend you, Jeff. I commend you and your group for doing one hell of a job. So. And with that, I am going to make a comment about the building that we've been talking about, a 67 Cass. If we want to talk about being, tonight Mr. Schnurr stood up and he made his comments, and I've heard Mr. Schnurr for 20 years. In 20 years he has had issues, and I will be more than happy at the next meeting to bring the stack of pictures of his issues, since he seems to be on this kick about everybody else instead of taking care of his own. 67 Cass. If anybody here on the commission, and I recommend every commissioner, please get the history on that building, the numerous projects that Mr. Adams has brought to this city in 20 years that the city supported, and at each time it never came to fruition, and we backed him. If we want to talk about blight, I want that building secured. We have an ordinance that every window in that building or any vacant building should be secured, blocked. I want it done. If we're going to start on this case of, you know, uniformed
Let's do it.
blight, let's do it. I expect that to happen. That building needs to be secured because it's not safe. And it was never an issue on veterans. I want to make this clear. It was an issue on a pilot program. There was never a guarantee that that would be veterans housing. It was MISHDA, low income, including veterans, but we had nothing to do with that. We were only asked on a financial portion of that if we grant a pilot. What was going in there would be going to the Planning Commission or elsewhere. It was not up for us to make that decision. So let's take the veterans out of it right now. And with the award that was given tonight, the recognition was well-deserved, and it had nothing to do with trying to make up for 67 Cass. And I resent that. That was even brought up. And with that, we need an exec session.
Move to go into exec, please.
Second. Roll call.
Campbell.
Yes.
Dempsey.
Yes.
Hill.
Yes.
Menser.
Yes.
Raker.
Yes.
Blash.
Yes.
Bunton.
Yes.
Okay, 5-minute recess. Okay, I need a motion.
Move.
No.
Not yet. We need a motion.
Move to approve recommendation of council regarding settlement of Hague versus city litigation.
Second.
Any discussion? Roll call.
What am I starting at? Dempsey.
Yes.
Hill.
Yes.
Menser.
Yes.
Raker.
Yes.
Blash.
Yes.
Bunton.
Yes.
Campbell.
Yes.
Now I need a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Hill.
Yes.
Menser.
Yes.
Raker.
Yes.
Blash.
Yes.
Bunton.
Yes.
Campbell.
Yes.
Dempsey.
Yes.
Sorry.
Meeting adjourned.